Hello everyone and welcome to another deck tech. This time around we're taking a look at black-red Minotaurs, because let's face it, Minotaurs are awesome. So let's start with the creatures. We have 4 Deathbellow Raiders. These are 2/3s for 2 mana that are forced to attack each turn and have also the ability to regenerate for 2 and a black. And the turn they come into play and aren't tapped yet, they also happen to block very well, because they can block cards like Voice of Resurgence, Soldier of the Pantheon, Ash Zealot, you name it, and this guy can block them for 1 turn. But then he's just a fine attacker, and he's a Minotaur, which is the reason he's in the deck. Next up we have Minotaur Cleaver, a 2/2 for 3 with haste, but the turn he comes into play he's a 4/2, so very good against any type of control strategy, because you get in for a big chunk of damage right away and then you're left with just a fine creature. So next is Rageblood Shaman. This is one of our lords in the deck, also playing 4 of him, and important to note is his mana cost for 1 and double red, because that adds up to your devotion, which we'll get to later. But he's just a Minotaur Lord. He's a 2/3 for 3 with trample and grants all your Minotaurs +1/+1 and trample. So he will be a lightning rod for removal, as people like to remove lords for some reason. Next is our good friend Boris Reckoner, a 3/3 for 3 mana white and red hybrid. So he's a little hard to cast if you're in multiple colors, but he makes up for it by giving you triple devotion to red, which will be relevant in just a second. He's also a Minotaur, if you hadn't noticed, and he's just very good at attacking and blocking and being awesome. So next is Fanatic of Mogis. He's the devotion card in the deck, so as I mentioned earlier, he works very well with Boris Reckoner and Rageblood Shaman, as those cards give you more than 1 devotion per card, making the Fanatic of Mogis almost a Lava X the turn you cast him, and then you're left with a 4/2 that gets pumped by all your lords. So just a very solid card, and also a Minotaur. And our final creature is Kragma Warcaller, basically a 4/3 for 5 with haste, and he happens to give all your Minotaurs +2/+0 and haste whenever they attack. So pretty much if you play this guy with 2 or 3 Minotaurs out, you probably just win the game on the spot, and if not, then all your follow-up Minotaurs will be better. Now let's take a look at a large variety of removal spells with 2 Magma Jets, 4 Lightning Strikes, 1 Mizzy-Mortar, 1 Doomblade, 1 Ultimate Prize and 1 Dreadbore. Let me go over all the cards real quick. So Magma Jet, the 2 damage may not be always as relevant, but Scry 2 is very good and it's a pretty picture, so if you're stuck with this in your hand, you're not too sad. Next is Lightning Strike, 3 damage for 2 mana, a well-known effect, and it's still good, and you'll play it. And next is Mizzy-Mortars, 4 damage, so in case your opponent is playing a lot of 4 toughness creatures, like Loxodon Smiters and Blood Barons of Vizkopa, then Mizzy-Mortars is very good, and if you happen to go all the way up to 6 mana, then you can overload this and watch all your opponent's creatures burn. Next is Doomblade, just 1, because the mono black devotion deck is quite popular at the moment. We have more in the sideboard, but it's just a removal spell that can deal with any type of big creature that your burn spells can't handle. The same with Ultimate Prize, it's in there because of the mono black deck, which runs Desecration Demons, which are otherwise a problem for the deck, so having a way to deal with it is useful. We also play 1 Dreadbore for planeswalkers or hard to deal with creatures. We have 1 more in the sideboard as well. So because we are a black deck, running Thoughtseize is a no-brainer. It's just a very good disruptive card, better against control than against aggro, but it's one of the few ways to get rid of cards that are otherwise very problematic, like for instance Obsidian Ghost Council, which we don't really have any answers for if it's blinking in and out of the game, so having a way to deal with it is very useful. Alright, now let's take a look at our mana base, which is pretty interesting. We are playing 4 Blood Crypts, 2 Rakdos Guild Gates, only playing 2 because we don't really want lands that come into play tapped. We are playing also 1 Godless Shrine, and you might be wondering why we are playing white lands in a otherwise black and red deck, and the reason is Boris Reckoner, which is red and white hybrid. So we want to have black lands that also are able to cast our Boris Reckoner, so that's why you see a Godless Shrine and also 2 Temples of Silence. The scry lands from Theros, so you get to scry for 1, but they do come into play tapped. So we are playing these over the 2 Rakdos Guild Gates basically. It would be nice to have the red and black scry lands, but since these aren't released yet, we can't really use them. We have 1 swamp and 11 mountains, and now we come to one of the most important cards in the deck, which is Mutavault. It's a land that becomes a creature, so it's very good against control decks that rely on sweeper effects like Supreme Verdict or Anger of the Gods. And as you can see, it combines very well with our Minotaur Lords, because when it becomes a 2/2 creature, it has all creature types, so it gets all the bonuses from your Rageblood Shaman and your Warcaller, making it a very big threat when those creatures are on the table. Now let's go over to the sideboard, where we see a bunch of cards that are already in the main deck, so you can add these when the matchup is right for them. We also have a bunch of new cards like Flames of the Firebrand, 2 of them, and Anger of the Gods, 2 of them. These are very good against the hyper aggressive decks like White Weenie or Mono Red, and they are also good against the green ramp strategies where they play an elf on turn 1 and 2, so you can take these off with just 1 card. We also have some more sideboard cards against control decks. 1 Hammer of Porphyros for those long grindy games where you just need more creatures in the late game. The haste granting isn't very relevant as most creatures already have haste, so that's the reason why we're only playing 1 of them. We also have 2 Duresses, 1 Thoughtseize and 2 Rakdos' Return to take apart the hand of the control player and to ensure your creatures survive. So that'll do it for this deck. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.